Let's talk about how the showrunners of our favorite show basically declared Dracarys on all the character development in the last season of their series, Game of Thrones. The final season is so god-awful that hating it has become cliché. From the hacky, fan-fiction-esque dialogue of every interpersonal scene to the unwatchable lighting of the most important battle of the series, the only salvageable element might be the set design. Minus the Starbucks cup snafu, of course. But before we hop into the details, remember to subscribe to the Screen Buff and turn the notifications on. The last season of Game of Thrones seems to completely throw away everything that makes our favorite characters compelling. It's fine to make a character we love do something we don't want them to do, even if that something is downright evil, as long as that action is properly motivated. Likewise, we might enjoy watching a character we like doing something cool, like slaying the Night King, but unless that action feels earned, their feet rings hollow. So, without further ado, let's dissect exactly how the showrunners have decimated all the best narrative arcs. The core issue with Daenerys laying waste to King's Landing was not that she did something evil. In fact, Daenerys' shift from breaker of chains to a homicidal lunatic could have been a fantastic character shift if it made even a lick of sense. But based on everything we've seen in the entire show, Daenerys destroying the townsfolk of King's Landing was simply something her character wouldn't do. D&D want us to believe that Dany, whose entire arc has revolved around freeing slaves and coming into her own as a benevolent ruler and figurehead, would suddenly commit genocide because her friend was murdered, a few of her advisors are gone, and her nephew, Jon Snow, doesn't want to sleep with her anymore. They could have found ways to make her descent into madness convincing. They also could have reached the same point in the plot without actually making her intentionally genocidal. But no, Daenerys is a genocidal monster now because they wanted to show girl power or something. Jon Snow is a great leader. We know this because, sensing a pattern here, everyone tells us he is. At one point in the show, Jon really did broker some degree of peace between the Night's Watch and their sworn enemy, the Wildlings. But in the 8th season of the show, Jon seems to prefer being entirely useless at all times. His best recent leadership moves were kind of shouting at a zombie dragon and meekly telling two dudes to fall back after King's Landing had already been on fire for 3 hours. He also really loves saying "Ma Queen," which is apparent because the script makes him say this constantly. Everyone loves a great redemption arc, and Jaime certainly seemed to be heading in that direction. Jaime's case was especially interesting because the actions he was being redeemed from, chief amongst them, pushing Bran out of a window, seemed so unforgivable. This made his general likability, a budding friendship with Brienne, and occasionally noble actions all the more compelling. Jaime may have done awful things because he loved Cersei, but he also understood his flaws and wanted to change for the better. Could a character like that ever be redeemed? Everything in the show seemed to point towards yes, giving Jaime one of the most powerful redemption arcs in fiction. He had fully broken free of Cersei's grip and moved on to another woman, Brienne, who accepted him for who he was. That is, until Cersei sent Bronn to murder him with a crossbow, and, for some reason, that experience makes Jaime decide to leave everything behind and return to her. It's fine that Jaime never completed his redemption arc. What's not fine is that his motivation for going back was nonsensical. The Night King was set up to be the greatest evil in the history of the world, the worst threat humanity has ever faced. From the beginning of Game of Thrones, we heard one refrain over and over: winter is coming. The Night King was winter, and he came only to get single-handedly thrashed by a teenager. He never got reason or motivation or character development either, which probably would have been fine if he had actually been the great evil he was chalked up to be. But, again, he got absolutely bodied by a teenager within 2 seconds of meeting her. Total waste of space. We feel that the last season was rushed. Maybe because D&D were offered 3 films with the Star Wars franchise. It was evident that D&D were less besotted by the fantasy elements of the series than many fans who fell in love with the books, but them slipping in the places where we expected them to excel makes it worse. Things got so dramatic that a Change.org petition was created for HBO to remake the 8th and final season with competent writers, which has now been signed by over 2 million people and is still getting signatures at a fairly quick rate. Although it may have been unfair, this wasn't the first time that the show has flubbed a production detail And that oversight isn't necessarily indicative of other ills. The Starbucks cup seemed to symbolize the sloppiness that had plagued the rest of the season. And unlike the coffee cup, frustrating writing can't be wiped away after the episode airs. Season 8 was anti-Game of Thrones, despite an excellent cast and incredible artistic work including costumes, sets, effects, and music. And while we still firmly believe that Season 8 was anti-Game of Thrones and largely disastrous, we are thankful that at least we had 7 seasons of it, and we will not let Season 8 tarnish our love of the show. That's our take on the subject, my lords and my ladies. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and drop your views on the last season of Game of Thrones in the comment section below.